He called her at 11:47 p.m. He said he was leaving. He said he'd be home soon. He said, "I love you." And then William Moldt drove off into the Florida night and vanished so completely that the world simply moved on. His family filed a report. Investigators searched. Friends asked questions that never got answered. And slowly, painfully, the case went cold. Years passed, a decade, 2 decades. But here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't disappear, it just waits. And in 2019, 22 years after that phone call, a man sitting at his computer in the middle of the afternoon, scrolling through satellite images on Google Earth, looked at a Florida pond and saw something that made his stomach drop. Stay with me, because what he found down there changed everything. William Moldt was 40 years old in the fall of 1997. He lived in Lantana, Florida, a quiet, unremarkable suburb in Palm Beach County, the kind of town where everybody knows the same 3 restaurants and waves at neighbors they've never formally met. By all accounts, Bill was a normal guy, a regular, working American trying to get through his week like the rest of us. He had a girlfriend. He had a life. He had plans. On the night of November 7th, 1997, William did what millions of Americans do on a Friday. He went out. He headed to a nightclub called Respectable Street Cafe in West Palm Beach. He had drinks. He socialized. Nothing about the evening seemed dangerous. Nothing screamed last night. But just before midnight, William stepped away from the noise and made a phone call. He told his girlfriend he was wrapping up and heading home. He never walked through that door. It's almost midnight. The air in South Florida is thick and warm, even in November. William pulls out of the parking lot. The road ahead of him is familiar. He's driven it dozens of times. Home is less than 30 minutes away. But somewhere between that parking lot and his front door, something goes wrong. His girlfriend waits. An hour passes, then 2. She calls his phone. No answer. She tells herself he probably stopped somewhere, maybe ran into a friend, maybe lost track of time. By morning, the silence had weight to it. She reported him missing. Investigators began retracing his route, talking to people at the club, checking hospitals. His name entered the system. Flyers, maybe. A few leads that went exactly nowhere. And here's what made this case uniquely cruel. There was nothing. No witness, no accident report, no abandoned car on the side of a road, no body, no goodbye. William Moldt didn't vanish dramatically. He vanished quietly, completely, like a signal that just cut out. Over the years, the investigation stalled. Palm Beach County moved on. New developments were built. New families moved in. New kids grew up riding bikes through subdivisions that didn't exist when William was alive. And a pond, just off a quiet road in a gated community called Winston Trails in Lake Worth, sat still and green and completely undisturbed for 22 years. I need you to remember this detail. It becomes important in about 60 seconds. When William Moldt disappeared in 1997, the neighborhood now known as Winston Trails didn't fully exist yet. That land was still being developed. Roads were being paved. Ponds were being landscaped into existence. Entire blocks of Florida suburban life were being constructed from scratch, which means when investigators searched for William in 1997, they weren't searching land they'd recognize today. The geography of that area changed around him. Investigators had no reason to look at a pond in a neighborhood that barely existed. And so William waited, undiscovered, underwater, 20 feet below the surface of a retention pond that thousands of residents drove past every single day on their way to work, to school, to the grocery store. People walked their dogs along that pond. Kids probably threw rocks into it. Someone probably fished in it once. Nobody knew. In 2019, a former resident of Winston Trails was doing something completely ordinary. He was on his computer, using Google Earth to look at his old neighborhood, the way a lot of us do when we're feeling nostalgic, or bored, or both. He zoomed in on the familiar streets, the familiar rooftops, the familiar pond. And then he stopped. Because just beneath the surface of that water, visible in the satellite image if you knew what to look for, was the unmistakable outline of a car. He didn't ignore it. He didn't talk himself out of it. He contacted the residents of Winston Trails, who immediately called the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Investigators arrived. They searched the pond. And on November 8th, 2019, 22 years and 1 day after William Moldt vanished, divers pulled a 1994 white Saturn sedan from the bottom of that retention pond. William's skeletal remains were still inside. He had driven off the road in the dark, straight into that pond, whether by accident or a medical event or something else. Investigators believe William simply lost control of his vehicle and went into the water. Nobody saw it happen. Nobody reported it. The water closed over him, and the world kept spinning. The car had been there the entire time, right there, in a pond that an entire neighborhood was built around. In a community where people went jogging and walked golden retrievers and grilled on back porches 30 feet away. He was there. He was always there. William Moldt's case was officially closed. Solved, if that word means anything when a man spends 22 years underwater while the world builds itself around him. His family finally had answers. That's what they say matters most, right? Closure. That brutal, insufficient word we use when we mean, at least the not knowing is over. But here's the thought I can't shake. Somewhere in those 22 years, someone probably looked at that pond and thought it was beautiful, a nice water feature, a peaceful view. And the thing that unsettles me, the thing that I think should unsettle all of us, is this. How many other ponds are out there? How many overgrown lots? How many unnamed lakes at the edge of developments? How many quiet corners of this country are holding on to someone's final moment while the rest of us go about our Tuesday? Google Earth solved a 22-year-old case. A civilian at his computer in the middle of the afternoon. William Moldt deserved better than 22 years at the bottom of a pond. But at least now, he's home. If this case stayed with you, hit subscribe.